philosophy in every way that I've encountered it, and I've read a lot of philosophy, and I have a pretty good knowledge of it. I'm not going to brag, but I have at least a good knowledge of the history of philosophy in every, or at least in most ways that philosophy is written. Philosophy appears to me to be different ways of talking about moving towards more knowledge. Like Aristotle stated that philosophy begins with wonder. So if philosophy begins with wonder, I think philosophy is essentially just all philosophy of science. I think that philosophy is a discipline that is methodological and metaphilosophical to science. I think it's a meta discipline, if you will, to science. It's philosophy. I think even if you read Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, that it's talking about actual knowing about the world. Fichte in his Wissenschaftslehre, Heidegger in his Being in Time, even all of those, and I could talk about many others. They all are talking about, they're talking about knowing more things about the world. Heidegger in his Being in Time goes about knowing about the world from, Dasein, as talking about consciousness, but really talking about the link between ourselves and other people and the whole entire world itself, and the the understanding and the interpretation that kind of goes along with that. In that way, I have a video that's called Ontology as Science, and in that video, I kind of explain why Heidegger is a little more philosophy is kind of more related to science and philosophy of science. But I'm writing my writing sample for grad school because I have to apply by December. So I'm writing that. It's summer right now, and I'm currently writing that. And what I'm doing is I'm the specialties, the two possible specialties, which is kind of governing which schools I'm going to apply to. I mean, I have I'm kind of aiming lower than I've been told to aim because of the mistakes I've made in the past, because of my record and such. I might probably have a better chance to get into a less reputable school in the Brian Leiter reports. But anyway, my writing sample, the two possible specialties I want to go into is either 19th century continental philosophy or 20th century continental philosophy. And it's necessary that if you want to go into continental philosophy, you want to have that as your specialty as you're going into grad school. You need to demonstrate that you have a good knowledge of analytic philosophy as well. You can't just write on your knowledge of continental philosophy. And I do have pretty good knowledge of analytic philosophy, and through my writing sample, I'm going to demonstrate my knowledge of 19th century and 20th century continental philosophy, as well as analytic philosophy, through talking about philosophy as philosophy of science. My argument will be, it's that philosophy in all its forms and facets is all just different forms of philosophy of science. I think philosophy of science is a division of philosophy which dedicates itself to figuring out the how in the what, in moving towards more knowledge, like talking about explanation and discovery, and philosophy of science is closely related to epistemology, because it's about knowledge and what is the structure of knowledge and justification. So it's about all of that stuff. But my argument is just that if we're reading Heidegger, I'm going to probably talk about Fichte, Schopenhauer, Hegel, Husserl, and Heidegger. In brief ways, in like the 12 to 220 page writing sample, just about how, these are a couple examples in the history of philosophy, which all have a similar model in their philosophy, and they all have a similar model in that they are all talking about how to gain more knowledge, about theories of getting more knowledge, the how of getting more knowledge. This is just a vague video about this. Like I haven't really worked out any of the details. I'm kind of reading currently. I'm reading through this, at least the first part of this book. Being in time, I'm reading through this, of course. Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, Scientific Inquiry, which is an anthology of works in the philosophy of science by Klee, another anthology of philosophy of science by Boyd, and also Die Wissenschaftslehre by Fichte. And I'm reading other things as well because I'm trying to figure out how this whole thing is going to go together. And it's July 8th right now, and I have to have a pretty good sample going by the time I go back to school, which is late August, and so that my teachers can look at it, my philosophy professors can look at it, and so that they can look at it and tell me how to polish it up and how to make it, more awesome than it is. Hopefully it is awesome. So I'm still working out the details. I'm still reading more and trying to figure out how this is all going to work out still. So this is all just like in its baby, steps, in its baby, or in its infant form of this. But that's kind of what I'm thinking about. And I'm sorry I'm talking about grad school and everything here, but that's why I'm thinking about philosophy as philosophy of science. Because philosophy, I think, in all its forms, even from Plato and Aristotle, they're all talking about, in Plato's allegory of the cave, it's about more knowledge. The philosopher king aligns himself most with the form of the good and the forms, because he's outside of the cave and he's ruling everybody else who is still inside. It's about moving towards more knowledge, and epistemology figures out the how of knowledge and justification and truth and meaning and such, and that extends to metaphysics and philosophy of language. But it's all, every single work in philosophy, I think, is all about coming towards knowledge. And I guess there's a possible consequence of this. And I guess, I'm kind of taking a bit of a position that's somewhat akin to the positivist position. People like Rudolf Carnap. In Carnap's essay, Elimination of Metaphysics Through Logical Analysis of Language, which I have a full video on, he talks about in there how we should take sense data or observation statements, the given experience, and use that as the foundation of all of our knowledge. Moritz Schlick also held a similar foundationalist position, and he said that we should throw out every kind of discipline which cannot be verified in experience, which means throwing out metaphysics like with people like Heidegger, and throwing out axiology like aesthetics and ethics. But and I'm probably going to say something about how Carnap is somewhat can be overlooked because even in the more vague continental writings, there's still a model for moving towards more knowledge about the world around us through the wonder that we all have, and that could mean that depending on if you're a naturalist or not in ethics, if you are a naturalist, then you can claim that ethical properties are verifiable through through science or the world. They are natural properties, and if you're not a naturalist, through this current thing that I'm kind of thinking about, ethics would have to be kind of thrown out of that whole thing. Same with aesthetics, and same with metaphysics that doesn't have its ground in same with metaphysics that does not have its ground in logic, or some other thing that has its ground in logic or experience. So that's kind of, I guess, that's what I think about every philosopher I've read. I think that it's all different kinds of philosophy of science. It's different kinds of philosophy about how we can move towards getting more knowledge about the world around us. The analytic philosophy of science, in like articles you'll read in here, that stuff, like, it's more specific. It's, for one, it is analytic philosophy, and it's more specific about how to do that. It's more clear, but it's still the same format of any other kind of philosophy in the whole history of philosophy. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts right now, and that's, I could probably talk about my running sample and all the stuff that's kind of, going to be going into this whole thing for a long time, because there's a lot of different things that have to work to make that whole, the whole thesis statement of the whole writing sample work. But thank you for watching and bearing through my grad school, yapping on about that. So if you have any comments, or if you think the stance I've taken is wrong, or if you have something to add to what I've said, please comment here, either to the side or below, depending on what device and what format you're on. And also, thank you for watching.